The Toronto Raptors have already been involved in 2 blockbuster trades this season, but every indication is that more trades are going to be on the way from Masai Ujiri's front office. So in this video, we investigate which players you can really expect to get traded and what might the Raptors get in return for them. Let's get into it. Welcome back, everybody. This is Amateur Hour Sports, the YouTube channel completely dedicated to providing you with Toronto Raptors news coverage and analysis in videos just like this, as well as live stream watch parties for every Raptors game. If you enjoy what you see from today's video, then please make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Help us on the road to 17,000 subs. And if you're enjoying this particular video along the way, be sure to hit that like button and try to get this video up to 200 likes today. But we're going to investigate 5 specific Toronto Raptors players in this video, and we are going to tier them off into different rankings here. Tier 1 being a player that is most likely to get traded of the bunch, and Tier 5 at the end of the video is going to be a player that is the least likely to get traded from the bunch, but keep a lookout for a possible return the Raptors could get before that February 8th trade deadline. And that 5th player on the list might be a little bit surprising, so please make sure you stick around until that point. But we're going to start off with Tier 1, the most likely Toronto Raptors players to get traded. This should come as absolutely no surprise. It is Bruce Brown. Of course, it's Bruce Brown. They just acquired him from the Indiana Pacers, and Bruce Brown has been in post-game press conferences talking about how much he'd love to play on a different team. Apparently, the market for Bruce Brown is sizable. There are a number of teams around the NBA who want a player just like Bruce Brown, and it's no surprise here. I'm a big fan of Bruce Brown. Really like Bruce Brown's fit on this current Raptors team. I think, honestly, with the roster post-trade deadline, if he's still here, I'd start him over Gary Trent Jr., but he's the perfect type of player for a contending team. He's a switchable defender. He can shoot threes. That's what you look for today. He hustles. He plays his role. He's making a little bit too much money, yes, but there is a team option at the end of the season worth $23 million. Right now, he makes $22.5 million. Again, that's too much money for Bruce Brown, but teams have flexibility on, number one, taking the team option this summer if they want to take it, letting him walk away in free agency, or even picking up that team option, but using him as salary filler in a sign and trade. There are a number of ways you can be flexible with Bruce Brown in the summer, and he's a good player. He fits into a championship team. He just won a championship with the Denver Nuggets. They would want to have him back for sure next season, but unfortunately, there's no real way for the Denver Nuggets to make this trade. However, a number of teams around the league will be interested in Bruce Brown. Mainly, the New York Knicks should have interest. The Los Angeles Lakers may have interest, and even some surprise other teams could have interest in a player like Bruce Brown for all the reasons that I outlined here. And the market for Bruce Brown is apparently so good right now that the Raptors will not have any issue trading the player, and they will not have any issue getting what they want for the player. The question will become, what exactly do the Raptors want here? And I think something that will satisfy Raptors fans is something along the lines of a first-round pick. Yes, it won't be a great first-round pick, but a first-round pick, salary filler. Perhaps if they can boost his value by, kind of auctioning him off here, going to the highest bidder, could they get an somewhat interesting young player involved as well? That is a possibility here, but the Raptors are at least getting a first-round pick and salary filler here. Could they get something to sweeten that a little bit more? I think it's a possibility, but Bruce Brown, I'm shocked beyond belief if he's still a Raptor beyond the trade deadline. We go into the second tier player here, a player that is still, I believe, very likely to get traded, just not quite as likely as the near guarantee it is for Bruce Brown. And that player, this one might be a bit surprising actually, is Chris Boucher. Chris Boucher has been kind of in and out of the main rotation for the Raptors. Like, he's getting game time consistently, but then there's some games where he's a vital piece of the rotation, getting tons of minutes, and there's some games where he's getting very few minutes, not really affecting the game. He's a very inconsistent player, but when he's at his best, he provides a ton of energy for a team, great rebounding ability, and can kind of space the floor a little bit here and there. Like, he's a decent three-point shooter, a decent defender on the perimeter, kind of as a help defender, not really as a rim protector, but that shouldn't be a problem to any team that lands the player, and the energy factor off the bench. This could be a player that affects some games down the stretch and affects some playoff games perhaps if the team were to get there for the player. And a team that has an interest in Chris Boucher has been the Boston Celtics. The Boston Celtics have been apparently keen on Chris Boucher for a little while here. So for the Raptors, Chris Boucher is making around $11.5 million this year, about the same next year. Personally, I wouldn't mind getting off that contract, freeing up some cap space for this team. Start again with the reset. Chris Boucher, man, when the times are good for Chris Boucher, he's such a good player, but then there's so often when the times are not so good that makes it difficult to really like him. I'd be okay moving off of him. I don't think he commands the same return as Bruce Brown, but any sort of filler salary plus any draft compensation. Can you sneak out 2 seconds for Chris Boucher? I think that would be a win for the Raptors. Again, adds on to the future assets that they hold and provides a lot of flexibility going forward. The third player that we have here, a little bit less likely in this tier here to get traded, but I would say that there's a good chance he could still get traded. And this player is actually Thaddeus Young. Thaddeus Young in the offseason had a $1 million guarantee on his contract, and if the Raptors did not waive the player, they would be paying him $8 million. Well, of course, he's still playing with the team. He played against the Memphis Grizzlies in a recent game here and actually did pretty well in the fourth quarter and has gotten some minutes lately in the absence of Jakob Poeltl. But nonetheless, Thaddeus Young is not getting any younger here. Yes, he's on an expiring contract, but consider the fact the Raptors actually picked up his player option in the summer. Why would they do that? He's clearly not worth $8 million. You rather would have just eaten the $1 million and opened up a roster spot. But the Raptors felt as though, hey, if we waive Thad, that only frees up about $4 or $5 million in cap space to use in the offseason. If we take on that $8 million team option, well, now we can include that $8 million of salary as salary filler in any trade. So I don't think any team is coming out actively seeking Thaddeus Young in a trade, so I don't really have what the offer would be for Thaddeus Young. But if salary is returning to the Raptors in one of these trades and they need to balance it out, Thaddeus Young is the simple piece to throw into a deal as salary filler to make a trade go down that otherwise perhaps would have been a bit more difficult for the Raptors. Literally, the only reason, well, maybe not the only, 90% of the reason why Thaddeus Young is still with the team is to be salary filler in a trade. The other 10%, well, the other 9%, veteran leadership, which, okay, can be somewhat valuable to a team. And the other 1% is his ability. Now, he's kind of surprised us with he's actually playing decent in his minutes this season, but the Raptors would not hesitate to trade Thaddeus Young if they need salary filler for a trade, so keep a lookout on for that one. All right, we move into the fourth tier. So a little bit less likely to get traded, but hey, some teams might be sniffing around. This has a possibility of going down if somebody really wants to play her, and that is Dennis Schroeder. Now, Dennis Schroeder, I think he's catching a bad rep from Raptors fans this season. You have to remember, he signed for the mid-level exception. He's making $12.5 million, and I've come around the player a little bit more than the fan base. I feel like my opinion of Schroeder is going up. The fan base as a whole is going down. Dennis Schroeder, for his shot selection, has been a little bit criticized by Raptors fans as of late. But since moving to the bench, I think he's been a lot better. The lack of talent overall on the roster is making it a little bit harder for him lately. But here's a player who can give you a steady 12 to 14 points per game, and he's doing so quite efficiently this season. The three ball has started to plummet from earlier on in the season, but the jump shot is very much there. He has been one of the most efficient, actually, mid-range jump shooters in the NBA this season. It's hovering around 50% on the season, which is extremely efficient for any player, especially a player like Dennis Schroeder. So when he's open in mid-range, he's cash. He can make those shots. He distributes the ball well. He's a pretty good veteran presence, I think, for the team as well. He's a solid player that I think I'd be comfortable keeping a hold of as a backup point guard for this team in this choppy period that we have coming up for the rest of the season. But if there's a team that feels like they need some benched help, some bench playmaking, some bench scoring, for $12.5 million, like, we shouldn't be treating Dennis Schroeder like a Fred VanVleet replacement. That's what he was ultimately, but Dennis Schroeder is a quality point guard making $12.5 million. That's good value for money on his contract. If there is a team out there that feels as though they could use that talent for a potential playoff run, not going to be that hard to come up with $12.5 million of salary filler, and draft compensation could be coming the way of the Raptors. Dennis Schroeder on a 1.5-year contract. He's not expiring. I think the Raptors could find a way to manufacture a trade in which they acquire a first-round pick and a solid prospect in return. Like, not the most outrageous prospect, but somebody of interest that's a young player. Not like a Kyra Lewis type of prospect, but one that's actually, okay, maybe there is something the Raptors can find here. Can they get kind of a rotation ability out of this type of prospect? I think that teams around the league that could be looking for a point guard would not really consider the Miami Heat in that discussion anymore after the acquisition of Terry Rozier, but kind of the easy one, the cop-out answer has always been the Los Angeles Lakers. If they can add in an extra player there, I think the New York Knicks as well could have some sort of interest in bringing in a backup guard, but a lot of teams could use ball handling, scoring off the bench. Dennis Schroeder could provide that. I think the Raptors could add in a first-round pick for those services. If they're not going to get a first, if you think that's a stretch, I'd be okay keeping him for now, but I think there is an opportunity that will present itself to the Raptors, and they'll see if they can capitalize on a move. So we move to the fifth tier. That's a player that There hasn't been any real rumblings about a trade going down at all, but if a team comes knocking, I don't think the Raptors would really back off of that. I think they would see, okay, what can we actually get for this player right now? This is potentially a good time to move on from this player. And I don't expect the trade to go down for this player. However, I think you should keep in mind something could happen, even though I don't expect it. And that player is actually going to be Jakob Poeltl. Yes, 1 year after the Raptors gave up a first-round pick to acquire him on an expiring contract, Jakob Poeltl, could he be on the move again? If you're a team that needs rim protection, you need size, and for a playoff run with seemingly the best two players in the NBA, one of them in the West is Nikola Jokic, one of them is in the East, and it's Joel Embiid. If you need a big that can do at least somewhat of a job on these players, Jakob Poeltl might be your guy. Like the Oklahoma City Thunder are a team that is very much lacking in size, and though I think going for a 4 and playing Holmgren as the 5 is the better option, they could elect to bring in more size, have Chet play as the 4, and have Jakob Poeltl as the pick and roll partner for SGA, for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, have that pick and roll partner, have that rim protection, have that rebounding that Jakob Poeltl can provide to a team. I think that there could be a bit of a market coming for Poeltl. What this could look like? Well, the Raptors trade away a good first-round pick to get him. I think the Raptors could even get 2 not-so-great first-round picks. He's on a pretty lengthy contract here. I'm not sure if that will be seen as a plus or a negative, but I think the Raptors could find a way to get 2 not-so-great first-round picks with some protections, some salary filler, and a decent young player. And for the team right now, I'm okay with Jakob Poeltl being on the team going forward. I think that he's catching another player, catching a very poor rep from Raptors fans this season, and we're very much seeing the impact that he has when he's not there. Like, he hasn't been here for 2 weeks. Wow, are we seeing how effective Jakob Poeltl is for this team? I understand the team looked like crap last season when Jakob Poeltl wasn't there. They look way better when they traded for him. They look way worse now that he's out injured, but you have to understand the current situation with the Raptors. This team really isn't going anywhere. Like, yeah, they could make the play-in tournament, but ultimately, like, that's not the ultimate goal here. The ultimate goal for this team is to develop players and see what you have for the rest of the season. So if you can get some future assets out of Jakob Poeltl, the Raptors right now are like really rebuilding here. Just get on all the future assets that you possibly can. Jakob Poeltl has 3.5 years left on his contract, $20 million a year. I think that's a fine contract for him, but is that going to be somebody that's vital to the Raptors going forward? I'm not so sure. Could he be that for somebody else? I very much think so. If the Raptors can capitalize and get something out of it, I don't think it would be a bad move for the team to make. So, those are the 5 players on my list. Tier 1, Bruce Brown. Tier 2, Chris Boucher. Tier 3, Thaddeus Young. Tier 4, Dennis Schroeder. Tier 5, Jakob Poeltl. Which of these players do you think is the most likely to get moved, and which of these 5 players do you expect to get moved? Give me your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below, because that's it for me for today. Smash that like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe to the channel for more Raptors content like this, and check out our sportsbook partner on the channel, the Bet99 Sportsbook, with the link in the description for everyday competitive sports betting odds and special amateur sports banger bets. I'm going to have my very own special bet on their platform for Sunday's game against the Atlanta Hawks. Sign up today so you can tail. Let's get in on the action, and I'll see you again next time for another video.